twirl again. Great.
Of course, this is how every man likes to spend their Saturday afternoon. A natural progression from shooting a 30-second film was to do one of cinema's most important skills: how to shoot a scene. And even better if this scene tells a full story. Remember Kristen? You probably don't, but so far she starred in every film in this series. Here she is in the Casey Neistat School of Filmmaking. This is her in-dream job, and she was even this extra right here. And sometimes doing the small jobs pays off. Because now here's Kristen completely owning a film that's shot entirely for her.
And we always invited over this other girl, Susie Jameson, to keep watch at the door, to keep watch for when mother and father were coming home.
You see, Kristen knew this writer who wrote a short film that was essentially a monologue, but it had some other characters in, and the entire film was one scene that told a story in about 3 minutes. So it's a perfect film to fit in this series, except it's set in the 1920s.
It's like your man mirror.
The whole point of this project is to challenge myself, and a period film with costume and set design was right up there as the biggest challenge yet.
Yeah, that's nice.
For this film to look 1920s, we needed 3 things: a location, props, and costume. The best way to start in filmmaking is to use the resources you have available. And with the first 2 films, I used locations I already had access to. But this film needs a more specific location, and I had to go out and find one. We checked out some local cocktail bars and restaurants that had a 1920s vibe, and eventually found this restaurant in Notting Hill. It's got great decor and a lot of space to set the scene.
And that's how I learned to tell who listens to jazz.
Meanwhile, Kristen and I read through the script together to get an idea of what we can achieve. And I begin storyboarding. As you know, it's not my strong point, but I'm slowly getting the hang of this. I don't think I've cracked it yet right here, but since finishing this project, I've got a much better understanding of how to cover a scene. I just don't think you're going to see the benefits of that in any of the films I shot last year. But I hope for the next project, which I'm working on now, I'm going to have storyboarding down to a T. Whilst all this was happening, there's a crazy story that involves me, my bike, cycling into this very canal, whilst I was wearing this rucksack, which had this MacBook Pro in. It's a story not entirely relevant to this film right now, but all you need to know is that initially my laptop came out okay, but 2 weeks later... Cue the black screen of death and an emergency call out for help. Hey.
On hard drive.
The footage is on a hard drive.
But the project is on
Project file, the latest one is on here, yeah. Always back up everything. Oh, it's new. Always. We're gonna need some specific props. A cigarette, a gramophone, and a gun. I know there's no cigarettes in this film. I'm gonna come back to that. They're easily sourced online. I just need to wait for the delivery. Remember this. I just need to wait for delivery. So the last thing to sort out was the costume. We went to a costume hire shop where Kristen tried on just about every combination of clothes.
No, I don't like that. No, I don't like the stripe. It's too 80s.
Until we could find something that worked.
Getting there.
Back at location, I met with Simon, who'd be shooting the film. We discussed the blocking and shot listing, and it was incredibly helpful being at location to do this. Don't forget, I'm still waiting on that gun. Still waiting. I took the storyboard and blocking ideas into final rehearsals. I wanted to be careful not to overblock the scene. This is a monologue, and the performance is going to come from Kristen herself and where I choose to place the camera.
You had it then, you had it so good.
Rather than Kristen moving too much, I think it's best to keep her still and make her move only when the character has a reason to. I split the scene into 3 parts, and that determined how the scene would be blocked. There's the initial confrontation, Kristen toying with her prey, and the deciding fate of this young girl. And each of those sections was shot and blocked in a different way. So we had a location, costumes, rehearsal, and props, and then it was the day of the shoot. Except I didn't have all the props. Remember that fake gun I ordered? Seems it's been shipped over from Germany, and it hasn't arrived yet. Now, most people would have a mad panic. But me? I just strolled into a local newsagent's and bought a toy gun for £1. And I bet you never noticed. For this shoot, we had a very healthy camera upgrade. One of the benefits of using a DOP is still at film school is that you get to use the film school's equipment for free. Using big cameras has never been too much of a focus for me with this series. I'm not so fussed on the technical stuff.
What do you press?
I'm more fussed about gaining experience on set. But just look at this camera, it's incredible. And while gear is important to filmmaking, the more you have, the more expensive it can be, and the more people you need to operate it. And people are a very valuable resource in low-budget filmmaking. So here's how the day went. Shot 1, the opener. Always the hardest to get as it takes forever to set the scene, My dolly made a fresh appearance, but I didn't want to overuse it. This was a tricky opening shot, initially with a cigarette. You see, the script had Kristen smoking, but I hadn't considered that there'd be a smoke detector at the location. It seems I haven't learned my lessons from my first shoot. So Davide had to multitask by pushing the dolly with one hand and grabbing the cigarette midway through the take with another, just so he could stump it out and prevent any more smoke filling the room. While we tried to solve the problem, we were filming above a working restaurant and I couldn't risk another fire alarm. So the cigarette became the drink, which is such a shame because instead of this shot, imagine an image of Kristen stumping out the cigarette, which I thought was a great metaphor for what she was about to do. The only silver lining is this did settle a dilemma I have about glamorizing cigarettes in film.
Drugs are bad.
Shot 2, the mid shot. While Kristen was still in the groove, we shot her profile,
When my parents were close to home.
but I wasn't happy with the frame, so I decided to reshoot it with shot 3, the second mid shot. Her eyeline is better and it's just a great composition to show her full character.
They're always off to church, to some revival or another.
Staying on this side of the room, we shot the gun pickup. We played with different timings of Kristen's line, which gave me options in the edit.
While I show you just what he wouldn't ever know about making music to a woman like you.
Then Luciano, our dead husband, arrived. We had him for a limited time, so we filmed his shots next, which meant shot 5, 2 shot of the girls. Not my favourite composition of the two characters, but it's an important shot to reveal the husband. Again, we played around with different timings and speeds. And in hindsight, we probably didn't need a dolly for this shot. A simple pan across may have been more effective. Staying in this position, we got the end shot of the film, a slow dolly in on Emma. And then I wanted a shot that put Luciano and Kristen in the same frame together, which I thought was important to the story. So we wrapped Luciano and continued shooting the rest of the scene with Kristen and Emma, starting with shot 8, the second 2 shot of the girls. My preferred composition of the two characters. It's just a better frame to capture their interaction, but what was really necessary was the close-ups. First of Emma, then of her leg. It's an uncomfortable part of the scene, so let's hold on the close-up. Then back to the beginning of the scene. I wanted a shot that could reveal who Kristen was speaking to without showing the dead husband. Then a close-up of the glass, which should have been the cigarette stumped out. And for some reason, we shot the line with the gun pickup again. I think it's because Kristen needs to be putting the vinyl down before picking up the gun, but it seems I didn't choose that shot in the final edit. And just for safety, I got a shot of the phonograph stopping. I thought it might be useful, but it wasn't. It was just wasted gigabytes of data. And that's it. 14 shots in one day. But the hard work didn't stop there. It was time to attempt something that I've never done before and something I've developed a love-hate relationship with. ADR. ADR is essentially muting all the dialogue recorded on set
And that's how I learned to tell who listens to jazz, who loves
and replacing it with audio you
who's a
record
liar,
afterwards
and who
in a
isn't.
studio.
Because you can't listen to
Well,
Iranian
a homemade
music
studio.
without getting an education on certain things.
I began by recording the audio with Kristen at home with a duvet acting as soundproofing.
So when my parents were close to home, was that?
Then it was a painstakingly slow process of editing this to match the dialogue. And of course, it was such an easy job, it just took me a few hours. Oh. So that's film number 3, complete. A long way still to go, but I feel like after shooting this film, a lot of things started to click into place. It's hard to explain, but I think that it's taken me 3 films to fully understand the role of a filmmaker and director in this type of filmmaking. I've not cracked it yet, but I feel like I'm making progress. So I'm excited for the next one. Surprise, surprise, Kristen's in that one as well.
And action. Oh, would you like to try?
Taste.
Reset and again, please. Keep rolling.